welcome back to Soul Coaching. I'm your host, Christopher Lee, your all-around woo-woo guru, which I think I stole that from you, didn't I?
I think you did. That is my Instagram handle, is woo-woo guru.
I just loved it so much. I'm like, this is kind of what we do, right?
Totally.
Beyond that, everybody on the show knows me, but I want to introduce my guest today, Mr. Nate Ewert. Nate, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everybody. As Chris said, my name is Nate Ewert. I'm a, intuitive healer in Denver, Colorado. Have a whole lot of big bag of tricks, I guess, is one way
He's
to
a
put
magician, a wizard.
I primarily work with bodies and do some energetic healing and some shadow work and all kinds of different things. But essentially, it's an invitation for people who are ready to heal in different ways. And I'm willing to witness that, a loving witness for healing.
That's wonderfully put, because it is really just kind of a big bag of tricks, right? Or tools.
Really?
It's not really tricks. Tricks isn't the right word, but tools specifically that a lot of healers, coaches, people in the service, arena have to have like their Batman toolkit, right? That we pull from, because everybody's different. Yeah. Nobody is the same, and everybody requires a different touch. And, I've had the personal, pleasure of being able to work with you on some of those things. And it's just been eye-opening in many ways, just, whether it's body work or the intuitive healing or the breath work or even just men's circle, just the energy that you bring as that person who holds space for other people is sometimes intoxicating. It's really cool to behold.
Totally. Yeah, it's an absolute honor to be able to do this work and just to continue growing in what I'm willing to witness and see and be that space to allow for people. And, I get pushed a lot to my limits. And I had a session just earlier this week, Monday, it's Friday now, so 5 days ago, that just really stretched my limits. A client who was really open to a lot of things just pushed my limits beyond what I thought possible in that moment. And it's so amazing to have that capacity and willingness and openness to just, as I said, be that witness to see whatever wants to come through and what wants to heal. And the greatest thing I think that I've added to my bag of tricks is the breath work. It's really opened up so much. And the great thing about it for me is I don't have to do anything. I get to sit back and watch and just facilitate, hold the space, make sure people are safe and protected, guarded. But they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones engaging in that relationship, opening up that healing for themselves. And it's such an honor to be able to be part of that with people. So.
Well, yeah. And speaking from experience, I mean, obviously the breath work there's so much of that physical element where the person is laying down and they're doing the healing work, but isn't that really kind of the case with anything healing wise?
Pretty much.
I mean, healers, we don't really do a lot. I'm just going to call us all out right now, because the people that we're servicing do the healing themselves. We just, like I always say, we get them to step out of their own way.
Yeah, totally.
Because it is. And breathwork, though, is just remarkably powerful. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that for people on the show. Breathwork's all the rage right now. I mean, I get every other ad on Instagram is some form of breathwork. And there's just so many formats and so many people touting amazing things and of course charging through the roof for it, naturally, because that's what you have to do in order for it to be effective. There's
no mission without margin, right?
See, we're going to call out healers a lot in this episode, and not to denigrate or demean what we do, because we do have to make money too, right? Absolutely. There's an energetic exchange that needs to be accommodated, because the amount of work that has had to occur on a personal and professional level to be in that space is worthy of that kind of economic return. But just breath work I'm speaking about in general. I wonder how effective so many of these are. I've tried a few myself since you got me hooked on it. And, you know, your method based on, like you say, the rebirthing method, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. It has its roots in rebirthing breath. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the lineage. So breath work, kind of like Reiki and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
some other healings, there's always the lineage. And some people are very, they really want to know what that lineage is. Other people have never heard of breath work, don't really care. But yeah, so there's a couple big, like major types of breath work. There's rebirthing is one of them. And that's the more the lineage that I've been taught in. There's shamanic breath work, there's holotropic breath work. And then there's, you know, Wim Hof has kind of created his own brand of breath work that includes a lot of different pieces. Um, but essentially what all of them have in common, it's this big umbrella of work, and it's about taking conscious control of your breath, right?
Mm-hmm.
We walk around all day long, most of us completely unconscious that we're even breathing, right? Or that
Mm-hmm.
there's air, that there's this thing around us that we need to live, right? It's, you know, you can go a month without food, you can go several days without water, you go more than a couple minutes without breath, and you're not going to be around for very long. um, and so it's this really amazing guide or spirit or energy that, you know, when we take conscious hold of it, it can show us really amazing and miraculous things. So yeah, how
Yeah.
far down this rabbit hole do we want to go?
Oh, as deep as possible. I mean, let's just go about as deep as I did in the last session that I went to
All
an
right.
intentional path. I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean, there's like I said, there's so much. I mean, even pranayama in yoga
Yep.
is a breathwork format.
Yep.
There's some Tibetan practices, ecstatic breathing. There's ecstatic breathing taught in some neo-pagan shaman practices, whether it's in the Nordic tradition or I think I've even seen one in the Celtic tradition, but don't quote me on that. It's just fascinating how we can mistake this vital process that we
Mm-hmm.
do every day as being just
Right.
nothing, you know. And then
Mm-hmm.
when we get into it, when we really allow ourselves to be captivated by it, it shows us this whole other world, an
Right.
open door into the subconscious. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what it feels like to me, at the very least, in most of the sessions that I've done, either in a professional setting or just in my own personal practice. It's just this dive into
Yeah.
that collective unconscious, or it can get there. I think first I've kind of always gone into my own subconscious, and then if you go
Yeah.
even deeper, you can see some other things or experience some other things. But tell us a little bit about how you got into this.
Yeah. So several years ago, a good friend of mine, actually my breathwork teacher, and he and I and his girlfriend at the time, well, I guess that they're still together. So his current girlfriend as well. We started a little healing center together in Denver, and right about that time, he went and trained with this really amazing teacher. Um, in breathwork, and so he started bringing it into the center, and it took me a little while. I kept asking him questions. I'm like, what is this breathwork that you're doing? Like, is it a pattern? Is it, you know, what do you hold your breath? What do you do? And all he would say to me was, you just got to come try it. Like, just come try it sometime. And it probably took me a year before I came to one of his group classes. And, you know, I'd kind of heard him tell me, you know, some amazing things that can happen. And I had no idea what to expect going into it. And it's this particular breath, it's really simple. Most of the breathing practices are pretty simple. Now, there are some that get a little convoluted, and, you know, oh, you're going to breathe for 2 in and 4 out, and then you're going to hold 30 seconds. Then you're going to do 6 breaths this way and that, right? The rebirthing breath is very simple. It's just a conscious circular breath we do through the mouth. And so I'm like, this seems silly, you know, and I remember starting it the first time, and I'm like, oh, my mouth is getting dry. I don't know if I can keep this up. I don't know what's going on. And then, like, the curtains opened, right? And you know, I started having cool sensations and big realizations, and I started feeling like anxieties and tremors in my body as it was releasing traumas and all of this stuff. And this was, you know, over the course of several that I did in a pretty short amount of time initially. But they were all really similar, some very similar sensations, some similar mental things that would happen. some kind of universal downloads of information. And I was blown away that, wow, this breath can do that. Some people do compare it to using plant medicine, but it is much more conscious, I think, having some experience in that world as well. I keep coming back to the breath because it's conscious. I can interact with it in a way that feels like I'm a little more in control, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really good way for people to engage in some deeper healing work and not have to worry about some of that other stuff that maybe you worry about with plant medicine journeys, and some of the going to Bali for a week and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, or Peru, or whatever that might be.
Right.
This engages the consciousness in a different way, and it's really amazing. I now consider the breath one of my guides. Just like any of the other spirit guides or energies that I work with, the breath is a guide. I work with the breath. It's no longer just this thing my body does. Like it is in itself, its own essence. In Greek, I believe the word for breath is pneuma, and it's breath and spirit are both interchangeable. So pneuma is breath or spirit. I think in Hebrew it's ruach. That's right. Same thing. It means breath. It also means spirit. And so, since ancient times, they've seen this connection between the two, and it's a really great way to access that. And once it starts, like it's just like any type of meditation practice or yoga practice or anything. You can always come back to it. But what I love about this is I don't need a mat. I don't need I don't need to be sitting in a certain position. It's like, I can be sitting in my car and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to come back to my breath. Oh yeah, I'm going to take a breath right now and be conscious with it. Right. And so it's like breath work isn't always just, I'm going to lay on the floor and do this specific breathing pattern. It's any time we take that moment to come back to the breath. Yeah.
It is a remarkable gateway to the present moment. And from my own experience, I mean, I can relate in so many ways to how you described your first couple of times. I remember it was at, excuse me, I've got a little bit of breath stuck in my throat. But I remember the first time you introduced it, and, I'd been doing like alternate nostril breathing and other pranayama techniques at that time as part of my yoga teacher training. But the first time you had us do it in men's circle, I felt this like lock in the back of my occipital ridge, and it hurt and it freaked me out. And I was like, what the hell was that? Like, that was weird. This is not for me. That's almost killed me. Almost gave me a stroke or something like that, because, I mean.
And what did we do? Like 2 minutes, maybe? Like 2 minutes?
2 minutes compared to what we do in some of the deeper dives. And it can be throttling and very jarring. And I remember the first time after that, when I came to do a full session, and how much anxiety came up after the sensations hit, and just a wave after wave of just, I don't even know if it was really trauma as much as it was just pent up emotion, pent up thoughts, limiting beliefs, things that you couldn't even identify in the moment when they come up, because they get so rooted in the body, right?
Yeah.
And when that came up, it was like, I'm going to die. That's what went through my mind. I'm like, I'm going to die. But I trust Nate. He probably won't let me die. And this is what was going through my mind. I was like, just keep going.
Understand.
Just keep going.
I've had those same thoughts.
And it was amazing to me how, if you just keep coming back to that moment, that breath, the inhale, the exhale, the inhale, the exhale, what kind of rocket ship can take, where you can go with this. I mean, I'm having trouble with the words, because words don't describe the experience appropriately enough.
They don't.
And to me, I remember the experience of just laughing hysterically in the middle of the session when other people around me were either angry or sad and crying. And I thought, how inappropriate am I being right now?
Yeah,
And then I got somebody else to
absolutely.
laugh with me.
Yep.
and it was just this incredible release that I came out of there flying. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm going to do a lot of this.
Yeah. And that's that's a really great example of a powerful session. And I think a lot of people are, they don't know what to expect going into breath work. And I've had many people come in and they're like, wow, I was not expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, whenever I, lead a group and we kind of set up the space, right. And let them know like, hey, here's kind of some things you could experience. Right. And so it is, sensations in the body. It's, like rushing energy, sometimes tensions. There's almost always people will have some sort of emotion come up, but it's not even necessarily identifiable, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it's like there's not really words, but it's like something's moving. And the beautiful thing about the breath and what's happening in that process is that we're telling the body with that breath that we're present. And so whatever tensions, whatever emotions, fears, anxieties, you know family historical traumas, akashic record, past lifetime stuff, whatever our body's storing, right? It's like all of a sudden we're telling our body, hey, I'm present right now. And the body goes, oh, you're present? Here, look at this. Here, feel this. And what we do when we're doing that is we stay with the breath. We stay with that presence, right? And that stuff just comes up and releases.
Mm-hmm.
And so, some people have really kind of scary and funny and amazing experiences and come out of it flying high, just like you explained or experienced yourself. Some people have, the reason they call this particular one the rebirthing breath is it was originally designed by Leonard Orr to help people remember their birth and go through their birth trauma and heal that. And so I have had clients in one-on-one sessions remember their birth, and remember past life births, and it's that's a really beautiful experience too. Some people get higher messages or get experiences from loved ones who've passed on. But another really common experience, and honestly one that I experience a lot, I do breath a lot. I've done it almost daily for at least a year, and not always big sessions like in our group facilitation or in our one-on-one sessions that I do, but sometimes I'll do the breath for 15 or 20 minutes. Sometimes I'll do it for 2 hours. Sometimes I'll do it for 60 minutes. It's kind of however much time I have. But one thing I notice now is just this level of presence, right? I'll maybe still get some of that tingling in my body or that, but it's just this level of presence and awareness. And I come out of it feeling like I've had the greatest nap ever. Right. And so it's like, even on that side of it, when it's like, oh, you know what? I just was conscious with my breath for 45 minutes and I feel so refreshed and invigorated and rejuvenated. It's like that's worst case scenario. And I don't want to say worst case, but it's like sometimes people just have that experience and it's amazing. It always meets you exactly where you're ready to meet it.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be, again, whether we're doing this, conscious connected circular breath in the rebirthing breath, or, more of the powerful holotropic breath, or even some of the pranayamas from yoga. I mean, they can be very powerful as well. And just making you present, right? Bringing some present awareness. I mean, I've seen people in just basic breathing meditation, some pranayama work, burst into tears with emotion because it's like, this is the first time they've been present and their body says, oh, thank you. Here's this emotion that you haven't been willing to feel. And now that you're present, you can feel it. Right. And so it always knows. I've definitely learned the breath always knows, and you can always trust it to meet you exactly where you need to be met.
That really is the underlying message, though, isn't it? Good Lord. I don't know what's up with me.
Maybe we need to do some breathing. maybe later.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's remarkable how that is the underlying message within almost every map that you look at, right?
Mm-hmm.
We love to talk about maps and how
Right.
you know, whether you're studying, you know, Kabbalah or the, you know, shamanic journeying or breathwork or yoga or meditation or Reiki, it's all pointing to the present moment. And the incredible, I guess, about this specifically, the all the rage breathwork that's out right now,
Mm-hmm.
this format forces you to confront those two pieces, and in a way that we don't, right? You have, you know, our usual day to day, blah blah blah, I got to go through all these things. Our conscious mind filters through what it thinks is important and buries the rest of it in the subconscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're being present, I loved how you brought up the oh, you're present? Here, look at this. Here's this thing you didn't deal with 27 years ago.
Right.
You know, deal
Yep.
with it so that we can unload some of this baggage. And so one of the things that I feel in most of the breathwork sessions that I've been that I've participated in is this incredible relief of some sort of weight, whether that's energetic in nature, emotional, or even spiritual in nature.
Yeah.
Just some kind of like ball and chains that I've been carrying around. You know, we carry around so much garbage,
Right.
whether it's, you know, psychic garbage or whatever label you want to put on it. It allows you to confront that in a safe space.
Yeah.
Where, you know, okay, if I just inhale and exhale, I can deal with this.
Yeah.
Because in other formats, it's still hard. And you know, in meditation, it's going to be hard to face something like that. In a hypnotherapy session, it's going to be hard to face that. And what are the comforts that you have in those moments with some of these other modalities? Not much, right? And so, like,
well, most of them are the breath. Most of them are like,
exactly.
okay, take a deep breath.
Okay, take a deep breath.
Take a deep
right?
breath, right? You're getting facilitated. Like, how, in all of those things you mentioned, at some point, the facilitator will tell you, okay, take a deep breath.
But
right. So even in those,
right.
they bring you back to the breath.
But what I love about it is that your conscious mind doesn't get in the way with this modality. Right. Because if we're talking about it, okay, let's talk about what happened with your dad, you know, this, that, or the other thing, whatever the trauma was, or, you know, that event with a friend, or the fact that you didn't get the dinosaur you wanted on your 6th birthday, you know, whatever it is, your conscious mind goes, oh yeah, I remember that. And I know exactly how to deal with it. The ego gets involved as well and says, okay, let's protect ourselves because we don't want to feel that again.
Right.
But I found that with this, you know, this specific, you know, modality, that doesn't happen. No. I mean, you may see a couple of things. I mean, I remember feeling something and going, my mind coming in and going, I know what that is. But as soon as I returned back to the breath, to the present, that was gone. And it was almost like an eruption, but eruption's not the right word either. Just a release, right? Yeah.
Well, it's like
of that pent up energy.
Yeah. We don't need the story, right? It's like it just allows the energy to move.
That was the word.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I've come out of some really deep breathwork sessions where, like, I just completely checked out. I'm like, I don't know where I was for the last 60 minutes. And then, you know, over the course of the next few days, like, little memories start popping. I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like it showed me something. Oh, wow. I'm interacting differently in this situation. And so, you know, there's some subtle shifts that happen that, you know, sometimes we don't even realize until, like, we're in a situation that maybe used to trigger us, or, you know, we used to interact in a certain way, and, or even like in a relationship with somebody, like, all of a sudden this person is completely different with you, you know, and it's because we allow that energy to be released.
Well, and that frees up space for us to be aware.
Exactly.
Right. You know, when we're carrying around all this stuff, we're devoting so much of our, you know, finite sense of energy, right, our very human sense of energy, to burying something in the past, or to not face what's coming in the future. And we're keeping these walls up. In the meantime, we have no more energy to devote to being aware, to be present. Yeah. And when we start to release these things, it feels like you're freeing up hard disk space or even RAM on your computer. Yeah. Right? Oh, I can run more programs. I can run gratitude now. I can run compassion now. I can, you know, it feels like that. It's like, just got this great antivirus software, and bam, here we go.
Totally. Yeah. It's an upgrade.
It really is a consciousness upgrade.
Yeah.
You know, I had Yeah, maybe. Yeah, who knows? But I had a really interesting experience after our last session where after the session, I think it was the day after, uh, went to sleep, right, that night, like people normally do. And I had this dream. Every time I have a session, it directly impacts my dreams dramatically in the next
Yeah.
couple of days. I
It's
have some
very,
sort
very
of
common. Yeah.
symbolic emotional release. And as you know, and as some of the listeners know, I've got my first child on the way, a son.
Yeah.
And in this dream, he was born, and boy, dreams, they don't make any sense most of the time, but he rapidly grew, right? He was talking after like 20 minutes out of being out, right?
Right.
said the classic dad, or I think he said dada, something like that. And my dad was also in the dream. The three of us, for some reason, were directly emotionally related in like the most intense way.
Yeah.
And everybody has their issues with family or whatnot, and I had to deal with a lot of emotional baggage surrounding my father for many years. And while we have a great relationship now, I still find little chunks of something where what was funny was little Arthur looked exactly like me.
Yeah.
And so what I realized was, first, how much I'm going to love this little squirt coming out, but how much I was not done with my relationship with my dad in some way, and seeing how he interacted with me in that space, because you know how things change and morph, people can change and morph in dreams. I realized, oh my God, that wasn't my kid, that was me and my dad, and how I remember our relationship being before the pain, before the trauma. And that wave of emotion came over me, and I was just stunned. Woke up, couldn't go back to sleep, which, I mean, that's not really a good selling point for breathwork, but I'd released something, and over the next few hours of the next day was just contemplating and allowing myself to face this thing that I'd buried a long time ago. And it was such a powerful moment for me. I wanted to share that testimony about how dramatically impactful this practice can be.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a big awareness, right? And it speaks to too, and I say this at the end of every, breathwork group, individual session, everything I do. It's like, this 2 hours that we spent together, like, yeah, the work part is done, but it's going to continue to work. It's like once you open up that relationship, it doesn't stop. And so, usually for several days to a week, like, we can have awarenesses come through and emotions come up, and there's a rawness and an openness that it opens up this flow. And so, yeah, your example is a really beautiful example of what does happen for people, that, these things just unfold. And it's very much like that. It's an unfolding process. And I've experienced many, many similar things. My dreams get very vivid when I'm doing a lot of breath work, especially when I'm doing the deeper sessions regularly. And yeah, I've had a lot of awareness around specifically anxiety. Again, it hits everybody a little different, but I mean, even just in my body, like I've had, there's this trauma release that we can do. That's, it's about completing the cycle of the excitement cycle, right? So when we are in a traumatic experience, or fear response or something, fight or flight system, we go through this arc. And a lot of times what happens is we can get caught in the top of that arc and we don't finish it. And so all this energy gets pent up, and it's like, you'll see the wild animals, like the deer, they get scared and they freeze, right? And in that moment that they freeze, what's happening is their heart rate's increasing. Their breathing is actually increasing. So they're ramping up all this energy to flee, right? To fight or to flee. And then, and then they'll realize, oh, there's no threat. And so you'll see this little twitch happen, right? Or you'll see it in ducks, like ducks will fight. And then all of a sudden they separate, and then they shake it off, and then they're completely calm again. We don't give ourselves that opportunity to shake it off when we get caught up like that, right? And honestly, in most cases, we try to calm ourselves down. I got to calm down, like sedate this person, or, whatever it is. And so we never give ourselves to disperse that energy. And so for me, growing up with some trauma and just dealing with all the shit of life, I'm sorry, I hope I can swear on your podcast. When I first opened this up, I remember my first few breathwork sessions, I would just shake and just convulse the whole time. And it was like, luckily for me, I knew that this was part of that process of allowing the trauma response to release, and to let that shaking occur was going to free up a lot of space for me. And so there was an absolute trust in the breath and in my body to know what it was doing. While that absolutely can be alarming for some people, I've seen some people go into it and they're like, I'm cold, give me a blanket. And like, well, yes, absolutely, I'll get you a blanket. And you are releasing this energy, right? And so that was my experience with it. And then every night after I would have those, I would have this dream of some old situation that had triggered, so, some kind of a response, a fight or flight response or something like that. And it would give me perspective. It would give me awareness of like, oh, here's where this was actually put into place. And I was able to release that, and then able to go back and look at it and process it from a completely present state and not a fear state. So it's, I hear those types of testimonials all the time. Some people don't have words for it, and it is hard to explain. And I can tell you every single session is different. I had one, was it this morning? Oh, yes, I did one this morning. It was a short one. I think I only pulled for like 10 minutes. So in the breathwork process, there's usually two phases, where there's an active phase where you're doing the pattern, you're doing the breath work, and then a relaxed phase where all the work is done and you just kind of drop into this really sacred, beautiful, still space where, just amazing things can happen. And so I think I did the active phase for maybe 7 or 8 minutes, and then I dropped in for another few minutes, and it just brought on this really amazing peace, and I did it just sitting up in my office before I got started for my day. And I don't really know why I'm going to that experience now, but it's like, it changes every time it's so different. But this, just an awareness for my day came in, it wasn't super profound healing or messaging. It was just this peace and this sense of love to bring to my clients today, and
Right.
it's just beautiful and amazing every single time. So there you go.
Can you hear that sound? The garage below me?
No.
You didn't hear that come on?
No.
Okay, good. underneath my office is the neighbor's garage.
Oh, okay.
They love to come home and close it and open it a lot when I'm recording. Always.
Gotcha.
Then never
Good for
another
them.
time. Makes me.
Good thing you can edit.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing to me.
That was a bit of an echo. That was interesting.
Well, yeah. It's amazing to me, again, what we're talking about with the idea of breath work and how it can be so undefinable by words. Just like in our last session, when you came around to me, you go, "What did you experience?" And I was like, "Purple." I purple.
Yeah.
Because I was
sometimes
just
that's all you got.
Right. And those experiences are fantastic, the sacred spiritual part. But I also wanted to give the listeners something to chew on when it comes to the physical parts of this. Like, what is happening in the body? What are the physical benefits, the health related benefits that you can have from practicing breath work?
Yeah. Well, I cannot say that anything is cured because I'm not a doctor. Only doctors can do that, right? Breathwork is it's a healing modality, right? It's about pulling in life force, pulling in energy, and when we do that, and when we give that presence to our body, things can happen. And so, on a physical level, I can speak to kind of what I've experienced and what some of my clients have experienced, and where essentially there's kind of two camps of breath work as to, on the physical side, what's happening in the body. Right. So in the rebirthing breath that I teach, it's about hyper oxygenating the blood. Okay. And so we're pulling in all of this oxygen, all of this life force, all of this energy, and sending it to the body. And so you'll feel energy rushing. Sometimes you feel tingles. Sometimes you feel pressure in different areas. But one thing I've noticed on a physical level is anytime I do have an injury, I always start to feel that rush of energy to the injury first.
Mm.
And I can tell you every single time that I've had any sort of physical pain and I go into breath work, I come out of it and it feels better. I'm not going to say it's healed, um, but it always feels better. So, and it's working on that healing process, right? It's supporting the body in that healing process of whatever's happening. Um, Several months ago, right before like the quarantine hit, I had a bunch of dental work done, and I did just some really, it was so painful. And um, I did some really gentle breathing because honestly, doing the more aggressive breath, just I was like, oh, it would hurt too much to breathe in my mouth, like because the surgeries that I had to have done. So I was doing just this really gentle breath, and I would feel this warmth and this tingling kind of coming through my jaw from where the surgery site was, and again, keeping it very gentle and um, nurturing, but it was as good as taking the painkiller, right? Which I didn't really want to take anyways. But it supported that. It supported that healing process. I know that again, I don't have any scientific backing for this, but I've seen it in myself. It supports, the immune system. I've definitely, been fighting a cold, and I've gone in and done a breathwork session, and doesn't affect me. Um, Again, that's my experience with it. I've had clients that have come in, chronic back pain, um, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis. Again, not that these things get healed or go away, but it supports the body. It supports the process in that. And so, they feel less pain. They feel more comfortable in their body. And those are very common experiences, especially when you first start doing breath work. There's always a lot of physical sensations, it seems. Again, everybody's a little different, but I've seen that with a lot of the people I've worked with, especially when they first start. It's like, ooh, a lot of body stuff, a lot of physical things happening. So I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It to me, it's remarkable in a lot of ways. I do feel that energy rushing to places that maybe I've not been conscious of, where
Yeah.
I've either held on to something for too long, whether it's some emotion that's trapped somewhere, or just not taking care of that part of the body for
Yeah.
whatever reason. Or any kind of abuse you can do to your body, whether it's eating or any
Hmm.
other relation. I felt weird pops happen before,
Oh
like
yeah.
kind of like even in like the abdominal cavity, something just release and just
Uh-huh.
let go, and you're just like, oh, whoa, I got movement there again, or something.
Right. I didn't even know I didn't have movement there.
Right? I
Right.
didn't even. It brings awareness to so
Mm.
much there because you're not allowing yourself to be stuck in, what do I got to do? What's my calendar? I'm so mad at my mom, and I can't believe I have to go in to do this. And
Right.
you let go of so much of that mind fog and
Right.
wildness that you're allowed to be there with your body.
Yeah. And there's something that happens too. I see with a lot of people and within myself, that once they like kind of once you've done it a few times and you're starting to get the hang of it, you kind of let go a little easier. And so, and I see this in a lot of people, but in myself a lot. I'll be like guided to stretch in some new way, or like I'll contort my body in a way that I'm like, oh yeah, I can really get that stretch in this way. And it's like, uh, and then I'm like, how the hell am I even doing this? I didn't even know it was possible to get in this position with my body, and it's like it'll open and stretch and show me how to do things, where otherwise I never even would have thought of that, right? And so I don't know if it's a feeling or a guidance or what, but it'll like show you how to do different things in your body. Like I've been shown um, how to sit. I know that seems silly, but like I have like, some really tight hips and hamstrings, and like it's actually helped me. I've done some seated breath work, and it's helped me like adjust my posture and like given me tensions in certain areas, and felt that rush of energy in certain ways that, allow me to adjust and sit a little differently. And I'm like, oh, this is actually more supportive of my spine, or,
Hmm.
and so it like, I mean, I know some of this can probably start sounding kind of crazy, but like it's amazing what this does when we really just kind of let it and be present, right? And just
Well,
allow that guidance to come through.
right. And, everything we're talking about, and I can totally, verify it from my own personal gnosis that has been the case for me. I mean, just meditation, that first seated meditation is hard for a lot of people. Either it's hard on your knees, or it's hard on your hips, or it's hard on your low back, or whatever. Those things eventually become corrected because we're allowing the body to do what it needs to do. And one of the things I always found in my early training with meditation is to breathe into the area that's causing you discomfort. Whether you're visualizing that or actually pulling breath into an appropriate area of the body. I mean, because there's so much that we don't do appropriately or with breathing, breathing in shallow and up in the top part of the lungs, or, there's just a lot of bad breathing, going around. So when you tune in like that, your body goes, thank you, oxygen. I can work with this. You're freeing up resources. You're letting go of all this, and whether it's anecdotal or evidence-based or not, the experience that people have for it is what matters, or have with it is what matters. If you ask me. And like you said, we're not doctors, we're not scientists, certainly. But that's not really our job, is it?
No.
And there are people, scientists and people who collect data on these sorts of things, that have worked with people like you brought up Wim Hof, and some of the immunity studies that have been done on him, and some of the people he's trained, and the physical value of this practice. And I mean, it just goes to show you how convoluted we've gotten everything when somebody comes along and says, oh my goodness, breathing can help you sustain and support your overall health and well-being. Wow, that is remarkable news.
Totally.
So, thank you, science. Common sense, right, people? I mean, it just makes sense. When somebody stops breathing, they die. When they keep breathing, they keep living, and it just seems so obvious that we've, I guess, lost that.
It's like did you ever see that movie Idiocracy? When they're like, nobody drinks water anymore, it's all Gatorade, and they're like trying to water the plants with Gatorade. And it's like that, the guy from the past comes in, he's like, no, you got to give it water, guys. It's like that's kind of how the breath is, right? It's like, yeah, I can breathe. Oh yeah, I can just breathe.
I don't need to pop 50 opiates to get rid of my, chronic back pain.
Right.
It's really an amazing practice that can be transformational for many people. And so to kind of start to wrap this up, Nate, what are some resources, some things that we can point the listeners to in regards to breath work? Where can they find out more? Where can they meet up with you? How can they get started with this?
Well, the first place is, within yourself. We all breathe every day. Pay attention to it every once in a while. Sit. I mean, you hear, I've heard for years, like, oh, take a deep breath. Oh, you're stressed out, take a deep breath, right? Like that's a little overused at times, but I mean, really, you can't breathe tomorrow. You can't breathe yesterday. You can only breathe right now. So every once in a while, just like feel your breath, just take a minute and just inhale and exhale. Just that alone can completely shift your day. And there's no right or wrong way, right? Your body knows how to breathe. And so that's the other cool thing about the breath. Sorry, I'm trying not to go on too far of a tangent.
You're good.
It's the one thing that it's like, we can take conscious control of it. And that's what we've been talking about this whole time, taking conscious control of our breath to affect a change through presence with our breath, right? But if we don't ever focus on our breath ever once, our body will still breathe. We don't ever need to actually focus on it because the body just knows how to do it, and it will do it. And so, every once in a while, just pay attention to it. Go, hey, body, I feel you. I feel the breath with you, right? And just give it that little bit of presence.
You got to put that on a t-shirt. Hey, body, I feel you.
Totally. That is a good t-shirt, I think. Maybe a hat. I like hats. So there's that. My my website is somaticsynergies.com. I have a page for breathwork. So somaticsynergies.com/breathwork, a little description of the process I do, a couple testimonials and a way to book a session. I do one-on-one virtual sessions, in-person virtual sessions, and one-on-one virtual sessions, in-person one-on-one sessions, and then in-person group sessions. I also do private group sessions. Our space right now is fairly small, so the group sessions we do have to keep really small because of the COVID stuff right now, and just trying to follow all the restrictions that are in place. But it is important. A YouTube search for Wim Hof. I love his videos. That guy is such a character, and he is doing such a good job of getting the message out. I am not familiar with his whole process, but one of the types of breath work that he uses in his process is based on the rebirthing breath, which is really amazing. Excuse me. And yeah, there's, I think that's probably the best source right now is Wim Hof, because he's done so much scientific research on it. And so for anybody who's listening, who is that skeptic, it's like, check him out, because he's really pushing this and doing a lot of the work for the rest of us, that it's like, I don't have the scientific knowledge background, but who I have the experiential knowledge. I've seen and I know what this can do for people, but he's proving it and has a lot of content out about that. And I think he has a couple little short videos too that are, you can practice a couple different forms that he does.
He has an app too.
Oh, does he?
A Wim Hof app,
surprised.
and it has he released it right around the time of the first lockdown. Well, not the app. He had the app before then where he has all like courses that go into cold exposure and all of his breathing methods. And when you combine those two, oh Lord.
Yeah, I know
that's powerful.
That.
Oh yeah, I'm going on like 200 days of only cold showers and then occasional ice tubs, and to me it's amazing. But the especially when you don't have forced air in your house, it is incredible. But but the combinations that he has on there are really cool. But the key part that is free is he developed this app that has like a color coded breath, so it tells you when to exhale and when to inhale, and you just kind of follow it. It takes a lot of the brain work out of it and allows people to be comfortable, because we're eternally glued to our tricorders, to use a frame of reference that'll date me, but that I found really powerful. And he has a wealth of knowledge on YouTube, and he has an entirely kind of comprehensive but digestible course on the platform One Commune, which has a bunch of other really big heavy hitters like Russell Brand and other people like that. So if you want to check out his stuff there, I know that's a good resource for it.
And like you said, I think in the beginning of this, do a search one time for breathwork, and you're going to get all sorts of classes showing up in your Instagram feed and your Facebook feed. And try them. Like I try all of them. Like I've been trained in one specific one, but it's kind of like anything. Once you start this relationship with the breath in a conscious way, it's kind of like, ooh, I'm going to play with it in this way at this time, or I'm going to try this different breath, or doing different suspensions of breath, or trying to keep a box breathing, a 4 in, hold 4, 4 out, hold 4 count, or, any way you can play with the breath in a conscious way. It really, it just changes everything, right? It just brings you into the present moment. And so, try that. Another one that I really like, and actually I give this to all of my clients that come to me for healing sessions. I work with a lot of people that are dealing with trauma and, stuck in fight or flight system. And one really great breathing pattern that's safe and easy to do on your own is, it's through the nose, and you want to do an inhale and then an exhale that's twice as long as your inhale. So maybe it's a 3 count in, a 6 count out, a 4 count in, an 8 count out. But what that does is it helps stimulate the vagus nerve and elongate that when we elongate the exhale, and it helps. It's basically telling the body that it's safe, right? If we're really stuck in fight or flight, we don't consciously take those longer exhales, right? It's our breath is very high in the chest and it's very rapid. So when we take control of that, we're telling our body, hey, it's okay. It's okay to slow down, and just doing that for a minute can really help. And do it for 5 minutes, and it'll really calm the nervous system down. And even if there isn't a trauma issue or feeling of anxiety or anything like that, just doing that will bring the nervous system down and prevent you from getting up into those levels, if somebody cuts you off in traffic or whatever it might be that life wants to throw at you that day. It's a really good practice.
Absolutely. And it, there's plenty of evidence out there anyways that it is a cortisol crusher. And if we know anything about cortisol scientifically, it's that it's your stress hormone. And what do we know about stress? Stress kills. So if you want evidence, there's plenty out there. Go ahead and look
Absolutely.
it up.
Yeah.
For me, I don't need to go do that personally. I've done my research before, and the experience was more valuable.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of the scientific research side of it. I don't have it at the top of my head to spout off, but because I have all the experience with it, and it's like, to me, that's so much more powerful. There is a really good book called The Oxygen Advantage that helps people like learn how to breathe again, learn how to breathe properly. He talks a lot about trying to breathe through the nose. So that's something really important. So for me, I have a hard time breathing, or I used to have a hard time breathing through my nose. I snore at night, big mouth breather. And one thing this book showed me and taught me was just how important it is to breathe through the nose as much as we can. But even just taking times throughout the day and be like, oh, I've been breathing through my mouth. I'm going to just breathe through my nose now. I've definitely noticed that wearing the mask now, in these time and days, for whoever and whenever you're listening to this podcast, we're basically required to wear masks all the time now. But I'll do that in my mask. I'll notice I'm breathing through my mouth, because I'm like, sometimes the mask, it feels like you're not getting enough air. I'm like, oh no, I can breathe through my nose. It's okay. And there's initially doing that, it brought up some anxiety and some weird stuff breathing through my nose. And I'm like, how is this possible? But I see so many people that only breathe through the mouth. So just practicing breathing through your nose can be a really powerful thing too. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I feel like we could talk about breath work for hours.
Oh yeah.
And rightfully so. But thank you so much. I know this will be very valuable to our listeners here on Soul Coaching. And thank you, everybody. Namaste.
Thank you.